one of the bigger stories on the news today has been the amount of people who saw the aurora borealis even quite far south. I saw a post from almost at the Mexican border from last night of a bird photographer I follow who had seen the aurora, and the fact that it might be visible again just as far south, if not further south, tonight. So that's pretty cool. I've only seen it once myself in the big solar event in May of 2024, which is pretty awesome. One of the things that really astonishes a lot of people is that Norse mythology actually has no role whatsoever for the aurora borealis. In fact, the aurora borealis is not mentioned in Old Norse except in one document. I think that that's, and I'm going to get back to the document because there's nothing to do with mythology. I think that's pretty extraordinary, right? It's this thing that just dazzles people. It's something that we associate with all of the mystique of the northern world today, and yet no one in the Eddas takes a moment to refer to it. Now, occasionally you will hear people say that, in fact, it is the bridge to the realm of the gods. Now, that bridge is called Bifrost or Bilrost, depending on the document you're reading. So Snorri Sturluson in the Prose Edda calls it Bifrost, which has become the most accepted name in English. Actually, when it's mentioned in the Poetic Edda, it tends to be Bilrost instead. Rost means length of measurements, so something like a mile. Biv or Bill, we just get either something like the shimmering mile or the trembling mile. The only description of what this bridge actually is, though, aside from a note in the poem Grimnismol in the Poetic Edda that says that it is burning, that it literally is on fire, is the description in the Prose Edda by Snorri Sturluson, who clearly identifies it as the rainbow and not as the aurora. I'm going to just pull this up to translate for you on the fly, because my translation of the Prose Edda is still forthcoming, and I don't feel like waiting for Microsoft Word to load up. If I've done this already, I don't remember. But Gangari says, "What is the path to the sky from the earth?" And Hai, who is Odin, answers and laughs, and he says, "That is not wisely asked. Has it not been told to you that the gods made a bridge from earth to the sky, which is called Bifrost? You will have seen it. It may be that you call it a rainbow." Regenbogi is the exact same compound in Icelandic as in English. It's the rain bow, the bow that appears after rain. "It has 3 colors and is very strong and is made with art and cunning, more art and cunning than other products of smithing. But as strong as it is, it will break when the sons of Muspel go and ride over it, and their horses will swim over great rivers, and so they will come forth." So clearly, just like the distinction between a natural arch and a natural bridge in the American Southwest, when Snorri calls it a bridge, he is literally understanding it as not just an arc, right, but as something that spans water. I think that the best way to understand that is that Midgardr, the realm where we live, is surrounded by an outer ocean, and that beyond that is Jotunheimar, and above us, somewhere above Midgardr, is Asgardr. So that water that separates us from the Jotnar also separates the gods from them. So anytime that you are going up Bifrost, going from the earth to Asgardr above, you are crossing over water at some point. I just don't see a way to make this the aurora. The 3-color thing, he says it has 3 colors, is a reference to the fact that if you split up the color spectrum that you see on a rainbow from red to purple, that you're only seeing 3 basic colors in an Old Norse sense, as discussed in my PhD dissertation, which you can find on the internet. in a few places, I even think. Thanks to Vicky Grove for finding this and bringing it to me after I threw it away. Where else could the aurora come up in mythology? Sometimes people tell me, well, it's the wild hunt. Well, okay, where's the wild hunt really mentioned in the Eddas, right? I mean, the Grimm seem to have a thing about it, but if you read through the Eddas looking for the wild hunt, I don't think you're ever going to find unambiguous evidence of it. I prefer to stick to what's in the Eddas and not just try to reconstruct pre-Christian mythology in Scandinavia from, later folklore. As many echoes as there may be in later folklore of earlier beliefs, it is still later folklore, and I want to find things that are preserved either in the Middle Ages or that are unambiguously passed down from the Middle Ages, preferably in the pretty early modern period. I need some linguistic evidence that something actually comes from earlier. And there is so little mention of anything that looks like the wild hunt to me in Old Norse mythology that I'm not willing to credit most modern notions about it as being subscribed to by, Vikings. There's the Wall of Flame in For Skirnis, or Skirnis Mall, the poem in the Poetic Edda that Skirnir crosses in going from Osgarður to Jotunheimar when he's courting Gerður for the god Freyr. I don't see a reason to think that this is anything but a wall of flame, right? There are a lot of, notice there is the interesting contradiction there that Bifrost crosses water and it is a wall of flame that Skirnir is crossing to go to see a Jotun. It could be that in going south, because that's a direction they associate with heat for obvious reasons, that there's this notion that there's a wall of fire that way that one could cross. There could be some consistent geographic idea there. Or it could simply be, as discussed in a really interesting article by Eldar Heide that you can probably find about Old Norse cosmogony, still a system. I think that's the title of that article. I'm fairly sure that's online, one or two places, that in fact there is no consistent idea about where the realms are relative to one another, but rather that there's a consistent idea that you have to kind of do something unusual to cross between them. So go over water, underwater, through fire, underground, into the sky. All of these are unusual movements for people to make, right? They're not just walking from place to place on a terrestrial base, and therefore that's how you cross from place to place. Just nothing in there unless you want to get, real cutesy and say that, well, this wall of fire really means the aurora, or Valkyries riding the sky really means the aurora, something like that. It never really sounds like it, right? You never hear Valkyries riding above and they shine green and red or something like that. It's always Valkyries coming down above a battle to, pick up dead warriors or help a favored warrior or something like that. I have seen occasionally on the internet, weird things people have made up in the 19th, 20th, 21st centuries about the aurora having an association with Valkyries, and there's nothing about that whatsoever in the Old Norse language. Now here's the mention that does exist in the Old Norse language of the aurora. There's a document called Konungs Skuggsjol, which is from the mid-1200s. It's firmly in the Old Norse period. That's great. That describes Norðurljós, the northern lights, and this term is related to, it means north lights, same basic term as is used in most of the Scandinavian languages today. But it is described as a wonder, a marvel, a strange thing that you might not quite believe really happens in Greenland. And it's described as like, some people talk about seeing this thing and it's weird, right? Who knows? But reliable people say they've seen this thing. I am not a physical scientist. I'm a linguist. Very familiar with Old Norse language and literature, not so familiar with solar radiation or what have you. I am not sure whether there might be evidence that perhaps, late Viking Age, early medieval period might have been a time when there was less aurora activity. I suppose it seems possible to me based on the fact they just don't mention it. And in this 1200s document, a Norwegian says that this is something weird that might happen in Greenland. But I wonder about that, and at the same time, I'm aware that there are references to the aurora in classical sources, so it seems like it's not something that's new to human experience, right? I think there may even be arguably Stone Age depictions of the aurora in cave art, and mentions of it elsewhere in the world in the ancient or medieval period. So it was out there. You would think that Old Norse speakers certainly saw it, but if they told stories about it or associated this with the gods, we have completely lost those stories. And when you hear otherwise, what you're seeing is the imagination of people in the last 200 years running wild, as it often does when people talk about Norse mythology. Well, I appreciate the support of the folks buying my books, like the second edition of the Poetic Edda, available now. And I appreciate the support of viewers on Patreon. And for now, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best. I'm here at Grimfrost World Headquarters Longhouse with Johan Hegg, and I just want to remind you that if you have Viking needs, you have a Viking supplier. Grimfrost really cares about getting things right. And if you need replica, well, anything, right? Shields, helmets, weapons, board games, cool t-shirts, hats, all sorts of accessories like that. You can get them at grimfrost.com together with my books, and they ship just about anywhere in the world. So check them out. It does help support the channel.